welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week through news and headlines ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel. Your co-host this week is the return of the almighty OG, PalpaKelli. Welcome back, PalpaKelli.
Hello, it's great to be back.
If this is your very first episode of the show, the way we format it is we go through this week's news, and then we end it with the Brokehead Block, which is what PalpaKelli and I have been watching, reading, playing, what's been making us broke this week since you last heard us. So let's jump right in and explore sector number 530. The Brokehead on the other side may be a little bit younger to remember what is going on with what Duke Nukem Forever even was, but I can assure you I lived through working GameStop and being there for Duke Nukem's release. That's Duke Nukem Forever, had this reputation of being in development for years upon years, and now it looks like Beyond Good and Evil 2 has surpassed that record. Ubisoft's first trailer was released more than 5,200 days ago, and both titles saw development starting and stopping many times as the direction of each game shifted. So some people don't count them as the same games anymore because the game Beyond Good and Evil that we got years ago, that little teaser trailer, is a different game than what we're getting now. Duke Nukem Forever, same thing, retained the same title, but it became different games throughout, but it's still one title, one pre-order that you could have had for years. And I remember being at GameStop when they finally released Duke Nukem Forever. People couldn't believe it, and I think now it's going to be the same thing with Beyond Good and Evil 2.
I haven't even heard of Beyond Good and Evil 2, but it would have to be a different game. So tell me if my math is wrong, but 5,200 days is like 14 years, right?
It's a long time.
It's a very long time. So think about how much graphics have changed in 14 years and the things that people look for in games. And you would have to make it an entirely new game to be able to support where we are now.
Even the development team, it's like the Oregon Trail. The beginning people and the ending people are not the same crew.
Dysentery.
Yes. Different marriages at that point. That's what happened with the game development. I'm sure it doesn't have the same team on there. There's no way.
Absolutely not. I'm still stuck on this dysentery. How many did we lose to diseases in the wild?
I did play a little bit of Beyond Good and Evil because I heard about how great it was. I believe it was on the GameCube, the first one.
Okay.
It might have also released on the PlayStation 2, but I played it on the GameCube. And I thought it was okay. It was a little bit of its time for sure. If you go back and play it, there was a remaster that came out on the PS3, I want to say. And they kind of retain the same controls. It is not fully remastered to today's controls that we expect. So I'm sure that a sequel would improve on all those aspects. But how many people still remember Beyond Good and Evil? How many people are going to be there for the sequel without a release of the first one? Almost 15 years later, as you were saying, it's going to be a tough sell, and I don't know how they're keeping up the budget to maintain all of that.
I don't know. I feel like in this day and age, you could market it as the game that took 15 years to release. Yep. And some kids would like, I'm not even that old. Let me check it out. Like, this game took longer than I've been alive to, and they'll have some market that way. But yeah, to your point, how many people still really care who were fans of the original at this point?
It's almost like you have to release it now because of the marketing, like you were mentioning it. There's no way to end it, and I don't think that that's going to go work against it. It could still get canceled, but it's Ubisoft. I think they'll just release the fucking thing.
They need to release it, and it's just that "Never Gonna Give You Up." Just plays that song the whole time, and people are like, "Ah, they got us."
A bunch of games were also showcased at TwitchCon, and that wasn't the news after TwitchCon came about. The festivities last weekend, there was a foam pit. There's always foam pits involved whenever there's a controversial convention involved. And in this case, same thing. Now there were injuries. Streamers had been jumping into it after doing battle on some elevated platforms, gladiator style. Do you remember that show?
Yes.
All American Gladiators? Some of them have been getting seriously injured while jumping into the pit. It was not secured with enough foam or against enough of a foam floor. So it had, I believe, 6 inches of foam and then concrete. And then the foam itself went up to people's knees, which is not enough for people to be jumping into.
Right.
And injuries have included a broken back, a disabled knee, a dislocated knee, and more. you saw the main video, the one that's going around of the girl landing on her tailbone, and you just see her immediately turn over and not be able to get up.
Right. Yeah. So dangerous. And I don't understand at this stage, and like, these things happen frequently. So why are we just throwing it together and saying, yeah, it'll be fine? Like this, I'm sure they're going to lose a ton of money. This is a huge lawsuit because you're telling people, unless they all signed a waiver beforehand that said, if you get injured, we're not liable, which maybe happened. But regardless, why would you not think, oh, people are going to like dive bomb into this thing? 6 inches really isn't a lot of foam when you think of a whole person slamming into it.
And at first, TwitchCon was like, it's not being used properly. They're not following the rules. You're not supposed to dive into it like that. They kept it open. Then people kept getting injured. And then finally they're like, all right, we're just going to shut it down since people can't follow rules.
Since you're all big babies.
And then it became, okay, we're going to have an investigation on who set this up. Yeah, there's a lawsuit coming for sure.
There's literally whole companies that just have foam pits.
Yep.
Like all those trampoline places. Why didn't you call them up and say, what does it take to really make one of these safe? But no, we're just like, they're just gamers. They'll listen. People don't listen.
Did you ever hear about that convention in Illinois? It was actually not too far from where I used to live, up near Schaumburg. And it was known for being like one of the biggest failures for conventions. They didn't have enough money to pay off the venue. They were literally raising cash in person to pay off the venue to stay there. And one of the things that they raised money for was a ball pit. And in the picture for the funding, they had like this giant pit that people could jump into. And sure, the argument of like, why a ball pit at an anime con? It's like, well, look, they're 20-year-olds and teens. They're going to be.
It sounds fun. Yeah.
And when it came to, it was a little kitty-sized pool with just balls thrown into it. And just nothing around it, just empty. It was a sad state. And 2 grown people sitting in it, like, all right, enjoy.
We paid for this.
Yep.
They could have at least gotten like a pack and play, like a kid's pack and play, and throw them in there.
No parents planned this, Kelly.
No,
it was
clearly
all
not.
people also
Clearly
in their
not.
20s.
They should have called me.
We got some pretty exciting movie news, especially on the gaming side. The Mario trailer, but first, Deadpool director and Sonic the Hedgehog movie producer Tim Miller spoke out about the controversy with Sonic's original design in a video with Corridor Digital. Miller denied that Paramount intentionally released a bad-looking Sonic design to drum up publicity for the film, noting that the incident was the, quote, luckiest horrible thing that could happen, end quote. And he specifically noted that it allowed the fans the ability to feel heard and have a sense of ownership over the final film. We could use a little bit of that at Warner Brothers Discovery, couldn't we?
I think he's just saying this because it all worked out well in the end.
Well, of course he is, but I also don't believe... Are you on the camp that it was all a conspiracy, that they released this terrible-looking Sonic first and then improved it later?
No, I don't think so. Do you?
No, absolutely not. It's kind of like the new Pepsi thing or new Coke. I forgot which of the two it was, where they introduced a new Coke to try to drum up excitement after Pepsi was gaining... They had overpassed them in sales, and the new Coke people did not like, and they said, bring back old Coke, this sucks. So they're like, shit, okay, so they brought out the classic Coke, and sales were better than they were before they introduced new Coke, and they surpassed Pepsi at that point. And they had then been asked, was this all a publicity to raise sales? And they're like, we're not that smart and we're not that stupid, is what their answer was.
Right. Yeah, because that's such a big risk to say, oh, huge. Maybe this will work.
People would get fired over that kind of thing, and maybe they did. And same thing might have happened with this movie. And I'm still in that camp of, sure, maybe the new Sonic design does look better, no question about it. It looks better than what they came up with, but I was willing to respect the original creator and see what they had to make. I don't care, like, release the thing. And instead, their design was scrapped and they brought in someone else and they revised the movie. And that kind of sucks from an artistic standpoint. It is what it is, but that's the design they went with in the sequel. Fans felt, quote unquote, heard. And they did end up supporting, which is kind of surprising because most of the time, video game fans, if it's a video game movie, they are not there to support it regardless because this thing is wrong and this thing is wrong. Even though most of the movie was very un-Sonic, it really is a fish out of water story. Oh, I'm in the real world and I'm a CG character. What's going on? They came out because they said, okay, we felt heard. We feel like they respect us, so we're going to be there, which honestly did shock me.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that too. And I think normally, like you mentioned with this community or even movie communities in general, they'll complain about something and then still not support it, even if it goes the way that they want to. So it is, like he said, the luckiest horrible thing that could happen, because maybe they even received more support because some fans were like, well, okay, like you listened to the fans and you changed this, so let me go see it now.
Unlike Warner Brothers Discovery, The Rock is saying, and we'll touch on The Rock, but his big thing was DC needed someone who could say, hey, we need to listen to the fans and give them what they want. So we're giving them Black Adam versus Superman. And it's like, no one's asking for that.
That's not
shit.
what anybody wants. That's what you want, The Rock. They listen to you.
Yes, he's trying to ride on the coattails of Superman. Right. He knows people want Superman back, of course. And he's like, and I'm going to fight him. So I'm in there. It's like, we want Superman to come back and fight Darkseid. That's what we want.
Right.
That's exactly the story we want.
Are you Darkseid? Oh, no? Then
no,
not you.
Hats off once again to Paramount. Their sequel to Sonic did very well, and we have a third one on the way. More video game movies, though, as the first teaser trailer for the Super Mario Bros. Animated movie released last week.
Mushroom Kingdom, here we come!
The movie is directed by Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelenic, who worked and collaborated on Teen Titans Go to the Movies, with a screenplay by Matthew Fogel, who worked on the Lego Movie 2. It is set to release on April 7th, and we'll talk about how fans reacted, but first I want to get what you thought of this first trailer to the Mario movie.
I think I enjoyed most of the trailer. I really liked seeing Bowser and those cute penguins in the beginning where they're like, yeah, we're badass penguins. And it's like, no, sorry, penguins. So I think they set up a very interesting world. And then, of course, you were going to see Mario. I'm going to be that fan right now who says, why isn't he Italian? Why isn't Mario Italian? You literally have a voice for Mario. Why aren't we using him?
That's been the biggest complaint out of all of this, is that it doesn't sound like our video game Mario. It looks like him, pretty much. I know some people are complaining, like, oh, the mustache is just a tiny
and
bit.
And his butt is gone. No butt.
Yeah, he's got no ass. They're like, give Princess Peach something to look at.
Her name is Princess Peach.
His is concave. Like, there's... So there's been those little things. But for the most part, this shit is more accurate than Sonic in the Sonic movie.
Yes.
And I get that Sonic is supposed to be real world, so that's what they were trying to do. But even so, this is as close as you can get to, let's just make a cinematic from the games, put it up on the big screen, and call it a day. But you're right, it is missing a bunch of the voice actors. A lot of people are saying, why did it have to be Chris Pratt? Why couldn't it be this original voice of Mario or someone that can imitate that? And it sounds like he's instead doing a somewhat of a Brooklyn accent, I guess. Sort of like in the original Mario movies or even the show. That's kind of what I was getting out of it. But I think the problem is Chris Pratt hyped up the voice so much. He was like, this is unlike anything I've ever done, unlike anything anyone's ever heard. So then when people heard it, they're like, okay, it just sounds like a guy.
And I understand their reasoning for wanting to get a high-profile actor to voice him. That's what we do with every movie.
Right.
Is we want to say like, oh, look who this is. But at the end of the day, do fans really care? We want Italian Mario. We want Mamma Mia. And like... Woohoo! Not whatever he's doing.
Is that racist today? I can't say. I'm not Italian, but is it, do you think that's...
It's Mario.
I will say, like, I can compare it to Speedy Gonzales. I don't get offended by the new Looney Tunes cartoons where they have Speedy.
Right.
Classic design.
Right.
He's going, arriba, arriba. And I'm like, perfect. Great. Like, that's not a... I guess it's a stereotype. I don't know.
I think if I were Italian, I would now be offended that Mario's not Italian.
Ah, there you go.
And I'd be like, yeah. I'd be like, why?
Do you not want to represent us, Nintendo?
Right. Were we not good enough for you? So you had to change them to New York? Nobody likes New York.
you got to white them up? Is that what's happening? You make it into a race thing?
Right.
That's how you 2022 it.
Is that what we call it now? Is it a verb? I 2022'd it.
If they years later, if they look back on this, they know what I'm saying. I'm sure by now
they're gonna be like,
okay,
oh,
I get it. Yeah,
2022.
I remember that. But that being said, that's the worst part of the movie, and that's a good thing.
Right.
Like there's good. They could have gone really wrong with this movie. They could have messed up in so many ways. And instead, there's going to be merch that looks like the characters from the games because they look good in the movie. You're going to see those at Universal Studios when they open up Nintendo Land. They're going to blow that up with all kinds of merch. Bowser looked great, even though it's Jack Black, another celebrity. And I know people are like, yeah, he's done voice acting before, but I still consider him more of an actor rather than a voice actor. But he nailed it. And that's kind of the world we're living in. We're not going to get video game, for the most part, video game or TV show voice actors on the big screen. Tails was an exception in that Sonic movie, and I wish they would do more of that. That would be awesome. Hopefully that opens up doors. But as you were saying, you put on Chris Pratt and suddenly his Instagram or Twitter with millions of followers, you're buying up that promotion. You're buying up all kinds of marketing, as opposed to like a Mario voice actor that's tiny, and it's like, all right, you're not really getting a bunch of marketing behind it on social media. And I think that's why they do it.
Oh, I'm sure it is to, get people who maybe necessarily wouldn't see it, but are going to go see it now because it's Chris Pratt. They love him and want to support him. Totally understand it. But again, as a fan and somebody who played a lot of Mario, like he doesn't even have to say that much. But for the most part, a lot of people on my Facebook were very positive about the trailer and said they really enjoyed it. I saw a few people who were like, Mario's the least interesting thing in this trailer.
Sure.
And there's like a lot more to see and to look at and to digest, especially like the whole world that he steps into. So I think it will do very well regardless of the voice. I feel like once we get to the end of the movie, and I don't know this, but not too many people are going to be complaining, but I'll still complain.
We'll see. We will review it here on the show when it releases next year. We're about half a year away. It'll be around the time that our baby is up. So.
Yeah, the baby's just up. It's just here.
Ding, ready.
Not quite.
And I know Luigi fans would have freaked out if they didn't get any Luigi in there. So we got him at the very end. Supposedly, we may see Luigi's Mansion at some point in the movie, which is what he's known for at this point. And Jack Black did say that they want to expand the world of Nintendo with this movie, which is something they hinted at with the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 movie. And that's why I was hoping back when that trailer released, hey, at some point, maybe we'll get a little glimpse of the other Sega worlds as Sonic is jumping or going back and forth with his super speed, which we did not get, unfortunately. But that may happen with this. If Illumination's the company that's doing it, they did Despicable Me. They obviously know animation. Whether or not you like their movies, they're successful as hell. People love those little critters. What are they? Minions?
The minions. Yes.
the
little critters.
The little Homer Simpsons.
Little critters.
Now I'm 34 and I say these things and I don't even think about it. They just come out of my mouth.
We're our parents.
Yeah, we are.
Every Pokemon's a Pikachu now.
Yes,
it just happened.
They're all Pikachus. That sounds hilarious to me now. Like I would do that just to troll.
Just to mess with your kid. Aww.
Yes. And maybe they were trolling us. We don't know.
No, I think they genuinely didn't know. I think they were all Pikachus.
But with this one, fans are saying, let's get more Nintendo movies out of this. And the one they were clamoring for was The Legend of Zelda. They want an animated one, they want a live action one, but they just want a Zelda film, which is tricky to do because Link doesn't speak. So you'd be giving him a voice. And
why?
Maybe,
you don't have to give him a voice.
I guess you don't, but how do you do a movie with a silent protagonist?
A lot of great music.
So a musical?
Well,
or
no,
a score,
just a great score. And then you could have characters around him talking. And then maybe that's part of the joke because he doesn't ever say anything. But people are like, what do you think of this? And then he doesn't say anything. They're like, oh, yeah, that's a really great idea. And then like they go and do shit. And it's like, oh, well, he didn't even say anything. And that could just be part of it.
That reminds me of the episode of The Simpsons when they go far into the future. Lisa's the president. And Maggie, who we haven't heard talk, every time she's about to speak, someone cuts her off. Same thing.
Yeah. And then you could just do that.
It got really cringy when people immediately, who do you think people said should play Link? The one person they always say should play every fucking character.
I don't know.
Tom Holland.
Why?
Because they want him to play every fucking...
Why?
That's the only character that these people... That's the creativity of these fans. Like, he should just play everyone.
Everything.
Every fucking character.
Or nobody. Because he doesn't speak. I don't know. That's what I'm going to go with. He can have that little like, hey, listen, that person can speak for him. Yeah, sure. I don't know. I played like one game, so I don't remember.
Is there a different Nintendo property that you would want to see a film of? And I've got an answer, obviously, what I would want, but I also have one that I think would be really successful.
I mean, I would just love more Pokemon, but I don't want them to combine with anything.
Not like a Smash Brothers type of crossover?
No, just Pokemon. I think a Fire Emblem game would do well.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Make it like a Fire Emblem.
PG-13.
Yeah, like just do it like all anime style, and you could do a really solid Fire Emblem.
I obviously want a Star Fox.
Of course.
I'm not going to get a Star Fox.
Do a
I think a
barrel
Metroid
roll.
would be amazing as well.
I think
a
that would do
sci-fi
very
Metroid.
well.
But I think a successful one, believe it or not, would be an Animal Crossing movie. Make it all animated.
Oh, yeah. People would go crazy. It would be like a movie about nothing, and people would love it.
Yeah, and you could throw in whatever fucking plot you want in there. Like something's coming to I don't know, whatever the fuck you want. And I think it would work. As long as you have the characters in there, they're all colorful, you have the houses, fossil digging, all that shit.
You do like animated, but like the feel of a Ghibli movie where it just like feels good.
Gotcha.
Like you just get taken back to like a younger space and you just feel good. And I think people would really enjoy that. And especially now wouldn't be a bad time to release it because so many people got into it during the pandemic, which was only about 2 years ago. And now life feels crazy again. So yeah, release it now. And like they don't have to play a whole game. They can just sit and enjoy a movie.
Just a couple of ideas for you, Illumination. Don't go with the Tom. What's
Tom
his
Holland.
fucking name? Not Tom. Is it Tom Holland?
Tom Holland?
Don't go with him as Zelda. Don't do it.
Yes, he can play Zelda. Not Link, Zelda.
And for 2 or 3 weeks in a row now, we've got some MCU news. Daredevil star Charlie Cox revealed that the new Disney Plus series could be redoing major storylines from the previous Netflix series. You and I watched season 1, enjoyed it quite a bit.
I did. It was really well done.
His quote is, quote, "And in a way, what's great about that is that we potentially get to tell some of the stories over and over again in the same way that they do in the comics. Every now and again, they start back at the beginning of Murdoch's journey as a little boy and they tell the whole origin story again. So maybe we'll get to do that. I don't know." End quote. This was in an interview with Entertainment Tonight, but it has yet to be confirmed if Daredevil Born Again will be a reboot to the character. I know you don't keep up too much on what's happening with all of that. Have you seen Daredevil in that yellow suit around social media? In that terrible She-Hulk series, he apparently shows up and he's in the yellow suit, which is the original outfit from the comics. Like first appearance, Daredevil is yellow suit. So that's already a difference from the Netflix series. It is the same actor. I watched on YouTube the clip. Someone did a compilation of all his appearances in that episode, and he fights She-Hulk. It is a completely jokey MCU'd Daredevil. It is a Disney-fied Daredevil. This is no longer a Netflix Daredevil.
Right.
This is her saying, "I'm going to bust your ass," misses, and he goes, "My ass remains unbusted." And I'm like, fuck. All right, this is a different fucking Daredevil. Fuck this. And the choreography is awful. You know how awesome it was in that first season. It's terrible. It's all CG. At one point, she pulls his mask off, and it's a floating head because they just superimposed him onto a CG body. And he fights a couple guys. There's no blood. There's no let's break some arms and really get gritty. There's no hallway fight type of thing. He sleeps with her, and in the morning, they do this joke of the camera and then him walking by in barefoot, still in his outfit, and this old lady walking by, and he's like, "Good morning." Him still walking, and she turns around and looks at him like, "What?" Like a joke. Like just all a fucking joke. That's what it is. Netflix Daredevil is fucking dead. It is absolutely dead. And Charlie Cox, good for him if he wants to keep playing the character like this, but I'm here to tell you that this is no longer that Daredevil.
That's so sad. But when I was reading this news story and saw that Daredevil was on Disney Plus or something related to the two of them, I was like, that show was way too dark for Disney Plus. Like that is not something. It was a really great show. Does Netflix still have it up? You can still go watch it?
Good question. I don't know. I know that the rights were limited and now they're Disney's. So they have all of those, including Defenders, Jennifer Jones, on Disney Plus. And some parent groups were mad that they had those on Disney Plus because they are not Disney friendly, I guess.
Right.
They're not this MCU Daredevil content, you know?
It's not. Yeah, it's not what they're looking for. But I do remember it being such a solid show. We really enjoyed it.
Kingpin
was so good. Like his whole story was just so great, and like one of those villains that you just really enjoyed and felt so bad for. And it was like, let him do what he wants. He wants to take down the city, whatever.
There was a love story,
he
wasn't
could just
there?
do it. Yeah, and
He kept pissing off his girlfriend or something?
Something. Yeah, he met this like woman and they were falling in love, but then she found out what he did and then she was done with him. Oh my God, it was so good. So if it's still on Netflix, go watch it because it will not be the same on Disney Plus.
Last week, we had covered that the Blade film had been delayed. And now it looks like, according to the Hollywood Reporter, Disney announced that they are pausing production on Blade as they search for a new director and continue to work on the script. Just a month before production was to start, director Bassam Tariq left the project. And some of the rumored things were, we covered it here on the show, but in case, I know PalpaKelli, you're hearing this for the first time, no vampires, except for Blade. They would fight supernatural creatures instead that when he stabbed them, they would turn to dust. So that way you couldn't have any too creepy violence. And you can't have vampires because blood means R rating. Can't do that. And that's where the conflict came with also the Star. The Star wanted that classic Blade, and Disney's like, you can't do that. And that's when the director left. Now they're continuing. They're reworking the script, whether or not it's for, okay, fine, we'll do vampires, or for, okay, now we really get to do what we want. Now that the director's gone, maybe we'll recast the lead guy if he's really that set on wanting the classic Blade. So it's a fucking mess. And it's fascinating being on the other side of the fandom, because I get to see the bias of these MCU writers. And I get to see, like, when I pull up these news stories, they say, well, this is a good thing because that means that they want to get it right. That's the spin they put. They want to get it right.
No.
And I'm like, had this been a DC production or something like that, fucking mess, right?
Right.
So that's what it is. It is a fucking mess. But people are still going to go out and see it regardless of what it ends up being. And I think Blade fans are either going to compromise, as Millennial Mike was saying last week, or they're going to go, well, oh well, I still got the Wesley Snipes one.
Yeah, Disney, what are you doing? It's just so frustrating. But the thing is, they know their fan base, right? They know their fan base is a bunch of teens or very young people who can't handle the darkness.
A lot of man children.
Yes, a lot of man children. And so I get it. They're going to cater to them, but then you're not staying true to the content and what it should be. And that's going to frustrate a lot of people too. And they would just rather cater to the man children who have the disposable income and don't mind seeing it 80 times in theaters.
Yeah, like that one guy that he was in front of Brie Larson behind her with his fucking binder of goddamn tickets or whatever the fuck. Saw it 72 times in theaters.
Who's got that kind of time? Man children.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. That's all they do. Watch MCU movies multiple times in theaters.
Oy.
And they'll be praising this Blade film no matter how terrible it ends up being.
Of course.
And it will be. And things aren't all great either on the DC side, which we are going to talk about some bland Adam. But first, I think some positive news. This is one of those news stories that was spun as a huge negative. This is a fucking disaster. What is Warner Brothers Discovery doing? They are making dramatic cuts to Warner Brothers Television. They cut 26% of its personnel across scripted, unscripted, and animation. So the 40-plus-year-old Warner Brothers Television workshop was also closed down, making this final 2022-23 class the last one for both its writers and directors program. So this is a program that would help usher in younger writers and directors, help them get into the industry, break into the industry, whereas otherwise it's pretty difficult to get into that as is. As far as how this will impact programming, Warner Brothers Discovery says that a number of projects remain, quote, in active production and development, end quote, and that production output is relatively unchanged despite restructuring. As a shareholder, I'm like, stop the bleeding. Thank you. Stop. You are billions of dollars in debt thanks to these fucking idiots that were right before his ass lift. So he is in there cleaning up. He's like, okay, where can we cut? Writers Program Workshop, that's great and all, but we can worry about that later. We can start looking for, when we can afford looking for new writers and artists and directors, we'll fucking do that. But for now, shut that shit down. I'm happy for it. Like, it's a business. And some of the people that were fired, some of the people that know people that were fired are on Twitter blaming Zaslav, saying that it's all for capital America. We're losing these jobs. It's a fucking business. It's a fucking company. This isn't an art school or some shit. Like, at the end of the day, they're here to make money. That's what the business is. That's what all these fucking film businesses are. So he is there to stop all of that fucking hemorrhaging of money.
And typically when you get to this point in a business where you are making these kind of cuts and shutting things down, what people don't realize is it's not because of something that happened yesterday.
Yes.
It's things that happened months or sometimes years in the past that we're now having to go back and course correct on. So to sit there and say it's all his fault, well, what led him to make these decisions? Oh, to your point, all the billions were in debt because of these other decisions that were even made before him. So is it unfortunate? And did he want to do this work? Probably not. But is it the work that he has to do at this point because he's responsible for this company? Absolutely.
Blame Toby Emmerich, blame Ann Sarnoff, blame all of these fucking assholes, Hamada, who put out projects that cost millions, did not make back its money, that greenlit a bunch of shows and cartoons that probably should not have been getting greenlit. They were just wasting money like crazy. And like you said, Zaslav has to be the bad guy, but you got to make those tough decisions as a good business person. And I think he's doing it the right way, of like a Band-Aid. Just start, just all at once. Let's cut all this fucking shit.
Right.
Get rid of all this. Let's make our quarter. Maybe in a year or two, we'll focus on, okay, now where can we spend some money? Where can we invest a little bit?
Where can we rebuild?
Another product of Hamada, Emmerich, Sarnoff, all of them, is Black Adam. And pre-sale tickets are not doing well. Wakanda Forever opens shortly after Black Adam, which has been taking the attention and the ticket sales, rightfully so.
But also, who cares about Black Adam?
Yeah, and that's the thing, like the DC account was saying the legendary Black Adam, and I'm like, fucking legendary Black Adam? What the fuck are you talking about? That's not a legendary character. That's not a character that ever should have gotten a solo. Should have shown up in the Shazam film, been a villain over there, then maybe spun him off if you wanted to. I don't think it would have worked. It doesn't look like it's going to work. The movie looks fucking terrible. And if you look at our local theaters, for example, 7 p.m. prime time, I looked at Universal, 7 p.m. Not a single ticket was sold at Universal on opening night at 7 fucking. I threw up the screenshot, and someone, one of the either Warner Brothers Discovery shills or whatever, or MCU guys, I don't know who it is, but an apologist said, "Oh, but that's in Florida. That's not the California one." I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's not like that's a fucking dead area.
Right. It's not. Florida doesn't matter, apparently.
That's what they were saying, apparently, yeah.
Only like the California sales matter. Those are the only ones that we count.
That's real money. This is all play money here.
Right. We just pay in with coconuts and some sand dollars.
We're pirates. Bobby was like, wait, so are you rooting for an MCU movie over a DC one? And I'm like, that's how bad they fucked it. That's how terrible they fucked it. I'm like, I will legitimately, I'm not going to see either one. I will not see Wakanda Forever or Black Adam. But there's a higher chance of me ever going into theaters to see Wakanda Forever over ever paying to watch Black Adam.
You're like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
That's exactly what it is. 10 years ago, you could not convince me that I'd be saying this. I'm like, I'll watch a Black Adam movie over a fucking Black Panther one. Fuck that shit. Now things have changed like crazy. Yes, I will root for that MCU movie, which I probably wouldn't enjoy anyway. Probably terrible also. But I'll root for that over Black Adam. If you have enough money to only see one movie this month or over the next 4 weeks, go watch Wakanda Forever. Don't watch Black Adam. Fuck that movie. It needs to fail. It's a Hamada project. And this is where I get to address all this shit, because I hear all of it on Twitter, and I don't have the time or energy to respond to everyone. But the people saying Black Adam has been in development since the Snyderverse started, in that era. Correct. The Rock's been attached to this shit for what, 10 years or something like that?
Yeah.
We talked about it almost a decade ago. I understand that. But that, like Beyond Good and Evil and like Duke Nukem Forever, that movie is not the same movie that is coming out now. That is a completely different project. Whatever that idea was is no longer the case. This is all Hamada. I will not support it. I don't care what little reshoots or whatever they did. It's not a Snyderverse movie. This whole idea of, if fans say it's not a Snyderverse movie, then it's not going to be. You're going to make it real. And it's like, that's not how this shit works, man.
We don't will these things into existence.
Exactly. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil the stupid fucking cameo because it's lazy. It sucks. It's terrible. And that's all they're relying on to sell fucking tickets. Not the plot, not character development, because all of that shit is just, from what I hear, generic.
Right.
Generic superhero. Is this Henry Cavill cameo post-credits where he shows up, says something about, it's been a while since the world's been this nervous. We need to talk, Black Adam. Black screen. You saw the post-credit scene. They have him in the red and blue, oversaturated. Justice vs. Superman is back. This is a Justice League sequel.
And it looks like he's in a video game. It does not look like Henry's actually there. Looks like a video game.
I can't wait for the HD footage to come out because I really want to see if they CGI'd all of Henry, because that would continue the joke of Headless Superman from Shazam, all blacked out Superman from the Pedo Squad show. It would now a fully CG Henry Cavill in this case. And it would also open up the door for a lot of questions as to why do they have to CGI Henry Cavill.
Did you not, was he sick?
Like, what's going on?
Did he not want to come back either? He was like, nah. All of this is so unfortunate because, like, we've read some Black Adam comics and we know enough about the character to know that this could have been a really great movie. He does have a wonderful story, right? That kind of sympathetic villain that just wants to care for his people, but goes about it probably a little less morally than he could. But to your point, and I also think The Rock is hyping this up way too much. You don't know what you're talking about, The Rock, and people don't care about you that much.
Well, that's his job, to be fair. Like, that's all he fucking does. But he's hyping up a fucking turd. They can't even get the pointy ears on him. They got that Namor, who looks nothing like Namor, by the way. And I'm brown. I'm Mexican American, and that guy looks more like me than he looks like Namor from the comics, even with the pointy ears and the wings on his fucking feet. So I get that, but they couldn't do that for Black Adam. Give him the pointy ears. They couldn't give him the hair, like the thing. Instead, they have him in that black leotard. It's just The Rock, like you were saying.
Right.
It's not Black Adam.
Well, hopefully after this movie, they see the error of their ways. Sounds like with the other changes that are happening at Warner Brothers that we may start to see some positive improvement, and that's what I'm hoping for. We're going to will that into existence.
I know there was a lot of hope over what Clay Staub was saying October. He kept saying October over and over again, and it sounds like the restoration is not happening this month, and I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed for the Brokehead on the other side because I talked about it on here. Clay Staub was talking about October, and it turns out he was literally just talking about Halloween. He was hyping up Halloween, even with his hidden Restore the Snyderverse shit. It's a shame. And we know this is not a part of Zach's, like, oh, maybe this means that. No, because Zach has not promoted this movie at all.
Right.
At all. When he was asked about it on one of those shitty streamers, they're pro WBD, they asked him about, oh, we heard Superman's in that. And he's like, oh, really? Because I don't know. I'm not involved in that. He said, I've been busy with Rebel Moon. Why aren't you asking me about Rebel Moon?
Right. The stuff I'm literally doing.
State of things. Incredible. But there you have it. We're going to have more drama next week, I'm sure. Let's see what ends up happening. But a lot of good, too, especially with the Mario movie. Let us know if any of these news stories, what you thought on Twitter at Reasons I'm Broke or wherever you can find us. But let's jump right in. We do have some semi-reviews on the Brokehead block here as we go into what we've been watching, playing since you last heard us. So, almighty PalpaKelli, before we go into House of the Dragon and Top Gun Maverick, how have you been feeling since you were last on?
Do we want to dive into this? You're laughing because you know it's terrible. So last time I was on the show, we talked about how I'm pregnant, which is very exciting with our second little one. So very happy to grow our family. But every pregnancy is different. And I have lost 13 pounds because I cannot keep food or water down. So that is how I've been feeling. It's been really rough. I'm hoping that it gets better, but definitely a lot of challenges this round to overcome. I'm thankful that you have been a fantastic support and taking care of so much around the house and making sure that I'm taken care of. And Leo's at that age where he understands. So like last night, I really wasn't feeling well and was, napping while he was watching TV. And he just rubbed my shoulder and he goes, I'm sorry you're not feeling well, Mom. And like, he's just so sweet and so perfect. And so that's been a great help to have that support. But it really has been a challenge because at least when I was pregnant with Leo, there were some foods that sounded good. And there are no foods. Nothing sounds good. Everything sounds like I'm going to throw it up. So why am I going to try it? And my doctor's like, oh, yeah, just like, eat this or eat that. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, nothing sounds good. And if it stays down today, it's not going to stay down tomorrow. So why am I even going to try? So anyway, hoping that gets better. The good news is I have had appointments and the baby is very happy and healthy. And my doctor's just like, yeah, the baby's just essentially sucking out your life force so that it can be okay.
It's building a spirit bomb inside.
Pretty much. So that is great news. I have seen an ultrasound so far, and that's very exciting to be on that journey. But no, I have not felt well, to the point where like I don't even really want to read. This is the first time I've really read something in a while.
That's crazy because you're a reader.
Yeah, I love to read. Like I've read something like close to 80 books so far this year, but especially over the last month, I just don't have like I just need something to like 100% turn off my brain. So I've been watching a lot of TikToks. I feel like a cool kid because I'm like, I saw the TikTok. And my coworkers are like, what are you even talking about? I'm like, they had this bop. And they're like, don't, just please stop.
The bop. Yes. Bop or not is something I learned last week.
I asked the other day at work, I'm like, can the bop only be a song or can it be a movie too? Like if I really like a movie, is it the bop? And they just stared at me. They were very confused. But it can only be a song. I've learned this.
Ask them if a musical counts as a bop.
Like the whole musical?
Well, a movie is a musical. It's a lot of songs.
Oh,
it's
okay.
mainly music. So can a musical be a bop?
Well, probably just one song from the music.
Ask them anyway.
Okay.
Confuse them.
Perfect conversations on a Friday morning.
Yeah. Bop or not? People our age can answer this. Better Off Alone, bop or not?
Oh, that's a bop.
That is a bop. Yeah. I'm blue, da-ba-dee.
100% a bop. Not the new one.
No.
Not this.
Which new one?
Whatever.
There's a couple new ones.
The Sam Smith one? Who is he?
Oh, there's a Sam Smith.
No, not Sam Smith. I don't know. That one DJ guy.
All right.
But I'm blue. That's a bop.
How about I Turn to You by Melanie C?
Yeah, bop.
Bop?
Mm-hmm.
All-Star? I'm going to say not.
I'm going to say not a bop. So, like, people I think a little bit younger than us will argue.
Because they're like Shrek.
Right. That was their childhood. I did learn that any Shrek song is forever a Shrek song. Like, you can never disassociate it with Shrek. It's true.
That's true. Yeah.
Any song that was played in there.
Let me ask you about 3 more.
Okay. I'm ready.
No Scrubs by TLC. Bop or not?
That was before my time. Not a bop.
1999.
Right before. I was 9. I didn't know about Scrubs.
How about The Boy Is Mine by Monica?
I did like that one. That's a
bop. Mm-hmm. But I will argue that the 99 Souls remake or remix is better than the original. That's one of those cases.
Okay.
What Is Love by Hathaway?
Oh, it's a bop.
That's a bop, yes.
I love the delight in your face. Like, yeah, that's a bop.
No Diggity.
What?
I like the way you work it. No Diggity.
No.
Never heard that one?
No.
Not a bop.
Not a bop.
All right. I can agree with that. I can agree with that.
You know which band I've gotten back into? And it's not as bad as people always made it out to be. Nickelback.
I can't agree with that. I'm not going on that journey with you.
Come on. Nickelback had some bops. They were great.
Okay, I'm going to do a 4th one here because even back then I thought it was not a bop.
Okay.
Livin' La Vida Loca.
No.
Not a bop. That's one that I'm like, if kids say the 90s kind of music kind of sucked and they pointed to that, I'd be like, sure.
Sure, you're right. What was that song from Flubber?
I don't
Do you remember that song? Oh, man, that was a bop.
How about Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana?
I do like that one.
That will forever be a bop.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right, no more old person talk here. Even though that's most of our demographic, our core.
The cobwebs are growing on me as we speak. Like these gray hairs.
We got to watch, and we've been keeping up with, but you haven't been on since we started watching it, is House of the Dragon, the Game of Thrones prequel. And I've said it before here, we did not watch the original show. I saw the whole first season, personally.
I saw the whole first season.
You saw the whole first season. But it didn't catch you, or it didn't catch me either, like this show has, for some reason. Even though the other one had Jason Momoa, I forgot the main character, that she becomes a dragon queen or whatever, Khaleesi. Mm-hmm. And even all that aside, for whatever reason, this is more interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because I'm consuming it slower than that first season.
Maybe. I also feel like there's less characters to keep track of.
Yeah.
Like in the original, you jumped between so many different houses and things going on, and there were so many people that, like, by the time I finished an episode, I was exhausted. I was like, okay, well, let me try to keep track of all this in my head, and maybe I'm just older now and care less, which could be a piece of it, but I feel like we're just following, like, one family and one storyline.
Yeah, it does feel that way. And what do you think about the show? What are your favorite themes of it? Your characters? They're all terrible people. It's kind of like House of Cards.
Incest!
We'll clarify that, because there's a lot of that in the show. Which character? That's every
There's a lot of
relationship.
that. There's a lot of that. So I really wanted to jump on this show because in my book groups on Facebook, they really talked about Damon and Rhaenyra and their relationship. And like episode 4 came out and everybody on Facebook and my book groups was like, this episode was so spicy. So then you said you wanted to watch it. I was like, let me just get to like episode 4. But then I was hooked by that point. So those are probably my 2 favorites. And I get that they're like uncle and niece.
Mhm.
But something a lot of people have pointed out is like,
Here we go.
in, I mean, ancient times anyway, but also in essentially the whole world of Game of Thrones, you want to keep the royal family line pure.
Sure.
So it's not that big of a stretch. Okay.
A sign of the times.
A sign of the times. But that aside, they just have such a great slow burn, and there's so many nods to they really like each other and want to be together, but there's all these things in the way. And there's even the one line that we've gotten to where the king is like, they're both the same, like they're both restless or whatever it was. So like they have that kind of same personality or that need to go out and explore and strive for bigger things. So they seek that comfort in each other. But of course, there's all these things getting in the way. So that's who I like to follow.
I don't have a character that I'm rooting for or that I'm like, I hope they make it because I feel like they all deserve terrible shit to happen.
Yeah, they're
to
all
them.
going to die.
And that's all right. But it's a little different than House of Cards where I was actually rooting for Kevin Spacey's character, even though he was one of the
Terrible.
worst. But it's like, this is the story we're following. Stop getting in his way. Let him do what he fucking wants. You know, that kind
You
of
just
thing.
thought he was hilarious
He
with
was
all the
so
stuff
funny.
he was doing.
Yes. And in this case, there's no one like that in this.
Right.
But I'm like, there's enough interesting things that happen with relationships, people, the guard hooking up with her when he shouldn't, all kinds of little things that I'm like, oh, that's, I
And
wonder
then
how
became a
that's gonna
giant
unfold.
baby.
Yeah.
I'm like, stop being a baby. She denied me. I'm gonna hate her forever.
So I'm in for the ride. I'm in for the ride. And I actually, I know the king is awful, just like everyone. He's terrible. But that journey has been fascinating
Right.
too. Just his own guilt of, am I really, I'm kind of a bad king, I think. I'm going to be remembered as kind of a joke. Things are so peaceful. I wish I were challenged at some point in my kingdom or whatever it was. And now that I've seen the actor's Instagram, as he said his goodbyes to everyone, he was like, this is a character that died the day his wife died because his guilt from that day has forever eaten him. He's been sick since that.
Right.
And that's kind of the journey we've been seeing. So that's another character that I'm like, that's really fucking good. King Valerius or whatever his name is.
Valeris. I have seen so many great things on Twitter and Facebook and different things about people just saying that actor did such a great job. And then supposedly the guy who wrote it, J.R.R. Martin, whoever he is, actually texted him and said, you did better than the character I wrote in the book. Like, you really brought him to life. And the actor was like, this is the best moment of my life, like, to get that. So I think as his disease progresses, we're going to see even more of that great acting come out. And even the pictures that I've seen of the way he moves his body and like portrays himself in that illness, I'm like, oh man, this guy is like so good. But also he is a terrible person. Like, his wife died, and to your point, he carried that guilt and started making all these bad decisions and can't trust his daughter to do anything, I guess.
Or brother or anyone.
Or anybody.
Yeah. His whole family and kingdom is already kind of broken as it is.
Right. But you really see that that's what's going to happen at the beginning when really the more qualified person is overlooked simply because she's a woman. And we get to see some of that play out throughout as well.
Hopefully she is. She could end up being a terrible leader, but from what we've seen so far when she's younger, she does seem to have more, she has some good ideas.
Right.
The other thing you watched is the biggest movie of the year, probably one of the biggest movies of the decade, I think people can argue. And I know we're only 2 years into this thing. We'll see what goes on.
Of the
until
decade so
2030.
far.
Yeah. Is Top Gun Maverick. And I'm happy you got to see it. It was my second time watching it, your first time seeing it. I've kind of shared a lot of my thoughts already, but what did you think of it?
I really enjoyed it. So I can certainly see why this movie did as well as it did. Very much a feel-good movie, very predictable plot, kind of a lot of things that people could relate to. But I think it also took us back to that simpler time in movies when every movie was kind of like this, and it was just very easy to digest, but still put together very well. It wasn't a junk food movie.
That's the key. Like
Right.
plot was I related to the characters. Like you were saying, there were some predictable things in there, easy to sort of digest plot type of thing. Like they paint out what they need to do. This is their mission.
Right.
Here's the graphics. But then it was shot incredibly.
Right.
And it was acted incredibly.
Right. And I think so many ties to the original as well, which was a very beloved movie, but not in a way that, because I've seen the original, but I didn't remember a lot of it. So it wasn't even done in a way that like I felt lost watching this, because they did, especially like the things with Goose, they gave you enough background that you understood what was happening.
You even get a flashback.
Right. I did really enjoy that the true villain that they had to fight was faceless.
Yeah.
Right? You never really saw, like, you saw them running around, you saw them fighting in jets, but it was a faceless villain, which, I don't know, made it even better. Like, the true villain was within, but even then, he wasn't really a bad guy. He was just trying to do the right thing.
Are you talking about John Hamm?
Yeah. I will always see him as the Geico man. But anyway, trying.
Progressive.
Oh, wherever he is. But trying to do the right thing, right? And trying to be this leader that he had to be and understand that the mission was bigger than the people. And then Tom Cruise had to come in and be like, no, the people are the most important. I mean, essentially, like, I'm going to teach them how to get out because that's what they need to do, right? And then John Hamm's like, because that's what they needed. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, he was okay with them dying.
Right.
Like, there were moments in that where John Hamm could have stayed the villain. They could have written it as like, oh, he got his comeuppance at the end after the mission was like he was almost rooting against them type of thing. But instead, he has that character churn where he's like, okay, you're like, he did fire him. He's like, you're grounded. You're not going flying out because ICE is dead or whatever. And that's all what's going to happen. And in this case, he's like, I'm going to do what's going to risk my career. And it's like, all right, that's the character turn there.
Right.
And that made you like him at that point. Like, all right, he trusts Tom Cruise, this loose cannon, you know? And although he did have that difficult decision later of like, no, we're not going to send anyone to save him. And it's like, this motherfucker again.
No, we hate him. But at the end of the day, you could understand and just be like, okay, well, he's a Navy general or Navy commander, whatever he was. And like, it's literally his job to make these tough decisions and to understand, is one person worth the life of so many more? And it was cool getting to see things like, we're going to fly this really old plane and beat these UFO type planes and show that old people are still relevant.
That's what it was. Yeah. A lot of the old audience loved it because of that.
Right.
It's not about the fighter. It's about the pilot, like that whole.
It's not about the plane, it's about the pilot. Yeah.
Even though
Things
Tom
like
Cruise
that.
was fighting these advanced, like you were saying, UFO looking shit, he was still able to use his skill to blow the two of them up. Yeah. It was cool.
And then not the third. Yeah. So it was really good. I think it was great for our age group, but even talking about like my parents and onward, I think it's something that they really enjoyed as well, obviously by the numbers, but there was just so much in there. There was that little bit of romance. There was that little bit of father-son relationship. There was that getting over guilt and forgiving and learning to trust again, all done in such a great and subtle way that it wasn't forced on you, right? It was just, again, easy to digest, but not junk food.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it too. And as soon as you finished it, you said, I get why it was successful. Right. Some people were saying that it's overhyped. Do you agree with that? Haven't seen it now, or my reaction even when I was like, I can't stop thinking about that movie.
No, I think there was more to get out of it as a father than there was as a mom, for sure. Because I did definitely tear up in some of the moments with Brewster, Goose's son. And I was like, oh man, I get it, but probably not to the degree that you did. Or even my dad talked about tearing up. And I'm like, you only cry for like Henry Cavill Superman, Dad. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So definitely, I think for that older male audience, for sure. But I don't think it was overhyped. I do think it was a really good movie. And if you just want to sit there and enjoy it for what it is, if you're going in expecting like the most spectacular movie you've ever seen, well, no.
But it may be one of the...
But it is really good. Like you said, the best that we've seen so far, and I would argue a very long time.
Better than the first Top Gun 2. Another sequel you can point to say better than the original.
Yes.
Along with Terminator 2, Alien, some people say The Dark Knight, I disagree. Some people say Spider-Man 2, same thing, I disagree. But BVS might be one. Sequel to Man of Steel. There's a lot out there. But this
I
is
really like Man of Steel.
Yeah,
but yes,
too.
I would say it's definitely better. I connected more with it than the original.
Well, there you go. That's what we've been watching. Not playing a lot this week, but the baby is obviously going to make us broke very soon.
Very soon. Already doing it.
We're happy. We got to see you got to see the little, but I got to see the picture of this ultrasound. Yeah. You got to see the baby moving, and by the next time you are on, we'll know if it's a boy or a girl. We'll have to try to remember to say it on here.
I sure hope so. I need to buy things. I need to buy clothes.
Prediction to the broke head on the other side. What do you think? Little boy, little girl? Oof. What do you think? A lot of people are saying because you're going through so much more difficulties in this second one that it's a girl.
Yeah.
That's like the wives' tale or whatever, right?
I guess. Yeah. They say like all the nausea means it's a girl. I've been really cranky this pregnancy, and they say that usually means it's a girl. Like it's going to be a troublemaker either way. So sorry.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. Whatever you want to believe.
This is my defense for a future baby that hears this and says, oh, Dad believed in me.
Mom thought I was a jerk from the beginning. Well,
you've just been treating me like inside.
You made me lose 13 pounds, kid.
But thank you so much for joining us this week. If you want to get in touch with PalpaKelli and I and the other hosts of the show, head on over to our Discord. There is a link on the description of this week's episode. Also at thereasonsimbroke.com. Scroll all the way to the bottom. You'll see all the links, not just to Discord, but where you can find us. We've got a collector's corner in there, so if you pick up a new Funko Pop, a new comic book, whatever it may be, share it on there, and the rest of us collectors can truly appreciate your purchase, because not a lot of collectors can totally see that. Not a lot of your friends or significant other might appreciate that, like that super cool thing that you bought, but we definitely will.
No, so I love those things.
Head on over to our Discord lounge. Thank you once again for joining us. I've been Daniel.
I'm Emperor PalpaKelli.
And Brokehead Core. All will be well. You don't have to cross these things over, but I kind of want to imagine a universe, an alternate reality where Top Gun crossed over with Independence Day.
Ooh.
They could have used some Tom Cruise in that battle against the mothership.
Yeah. That guy who like flies it up in there and he's like, I'm back, motherfuckers. I don't remember what he
Yeah, that's what he says,
but
pretty much.
He could have been part of Tom Cruise's fleet, and like they called him crazy the whole time. Like that was his call sign.
Yes.
Crazy ass. And he's like, see, I told you.
But before he sacrifices himself, Tom Cruise would go in, shoot his missile. That way it wasn't necessary. He can go with his son and his kid. That'd be the father-son thing again also. Perfect.
It would be perfect. And then like the president would have had to have been like a part of it. So there had to be that guy like, you don't have access to the president. And the president sees him. And he's like, Maverick.
Haven't seen you in years. Are you still that son of a bitch that flies too fast?
They got to have that secret handshake.
It's the only way I fly.